one thing is for sure. As I'm sitting here now on, what's today, August 2014, my knowledge and understanding of World Mission Society Church of God is certainly quite different than it was in 2012 when this case was first filed. I understand its philosophies as are known to the general public, and I am aware of the individuals, the number of individuals who have spoken out against the teachings of the church and have indicated that, in their opinion, the activities of the church and the methodology of the church and the teachings of the church are not a positive factor. The amount of negative treatment as to the church is significant, not by Ms. Colón. There is nothing in anything that you've produced to distinguish anything that she did as opposed to the myriad of others who have spoken out against the church. What has happened to your organization as a result of the alleged defamation?
We have lost members.
How do you know that?
For the reasons we allege in the complaint.
And why is that actionable?
That Ms.
Losing members. If people leave a congregation, why is that actionable for the organization?
If they left the congregation because of Ms. Colón's statements, then it is an element of damages. Now,
how?
Because them leaving the church is Ms. Colón's statements are the proximate cause of them leaving the church.
What is being presented to the court by defense counsel is that there's multiple sites on the internet and individuals on the internet making similar, if not same, comments as Ms. Colón. And therefore, how would you, as the plaintiff, say that such and such happened to your client as a result of her actions, as opposed to the myriad of other people who are doing the same thing? How about YouTube? How about Google? There's a site, Wikipedia, there's a site, Church of God, World Mission Society Cult. YouTube. Are you going to sue YouTube? Yahoo. Is the World Mission Society Church of God a cult? Yahoo. So where I am inquiring is, how do you separate your alleged damages from Wikipedia, YouTube, Yahoo, and the other items I mentioned from Ms. Colón? Your damages that you are alleging against Ms. Colón vis-a-vis the church has to do with lost membership, loss of goodwill, and you believe you are going to be able to submit proofs particular to her, as opposed to the myriad of other forces that are out there in discussion regarding this church.
Your Honor, there is only one way for them to prove what they need to prove. That is, you have to take the depositions of the people who left the church and ask them why they left and what they read before they decided to leave.
Correct.
That can't happen. And the reason it can't happen is because they are asserting constitutional protection over their former members. And how many people actually left the New Jersey church after these statements were published? You don't have a number?
Most respectfully, I do not believe that your proposed theory of proofs is adequate. Okay.
And I think that it's very sad because she genuinely joined the church to find the truth, like we all do. And she trusted her friends, and then she trusted the church, and she trusted them with everything. And she spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money invested in this religion, in this believing that she was going to be saved and that she was going to go to heaven. And then as she was finding out information, she was trying to get answers. She was trying to get answers from her husband, and she was trying to get answers from the pastor directly, and it wasn't satisfying her. So she wanted to leave, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, her questions were not answered by the WMSCOG. They say that the church can answer every question. They cannot. They cannot answer the questions that she was asking, and they still cannot. But it's awful that they went after her the way that they did. Because when she left, she wanted to put out the correct information. She wanted them to answer her questions. And so she asked in a public way. And they didn't like that. And they didn't like her criticism, and they didn't like her speaking out against what she saw and what she experienced and what she felt in the church. And so they went after her and they sued her.
When it came out that the church was actually the one who initiated the lawsuits, and they're the ones who were the aggressor against, Michele, and they're bringing her, it's like, well, if somebody, because he said, oh, she's posting a lot of negative things online. And if somebody speaks against your mother, wouldn't you stand up against them? Would you just, accept that and, do nothing? So how much more should you stand up for your spiritual mother? So that's, the way that we stand up for our spiritual mother in this day and age is, we go to court, we sue.
If the World Mission Society Church of God is correct, that what we are doing is persecuting them, if what I am doing, what former members are doing, is persecuting the church, well, Jesus, he gave very clear directions about what Christians, what his followers are to do in response to persecution. Okay, I'm going to read this one more time. I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Pray for them. Pray for them. Don't sue them. Don't attack them. Don't insult them. Don't try to smother them and destroy their lives, as the WMSCOG has done with individuals like Michele Colón. I would assume for many people, even members, who are hearing you right now, it's probably going to come as like a surprise to hear that the WMSCOG has done this and has sued not just you but other people. Some of them will probably not believe it. I would assume they'll probably. I would say
the documents out there.
Yeah,
they can read them for themselves. And I might add, they did sue me for like $12 million in Virginia, or us. Let's say 6 each or 5 each. That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have
the
that.
documentation is out there. There's
there.
You can
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we'll obviously have. I mean, we'll be pulling up photos and stuff like that during the conversation. Have links to stuff. But I was hearing again on the podcast about how you used to focus more on trying to disprove their doctrines from the Bible and things like that. That was kind of a focus on your website, and now you've gone more in a different direction and just. I feel like that's kind of what this court case really goes a long way toward that, because now you're more, I think if I remember right, you're more focused on just showing the behaviors of this group or things about how they operate that make it really clear, like, hey, this group obviously is not of God. God obviously would not have his, the one true church operating this way. So how, I guess, do you think that like these cases, these court cases, the lawsuits against you, how does that all kind of fit together for you?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that I don't ever focus on the doctrine anymore, because we will release an article here and there about the doctrine and how it doesn't make sense and other errors that they've made in translation. So we haven't thrown them out completely. We still publish them, but my focus is on the level of deception and the behavior that they are willing to engage in a public forum like a court, for example. They even sued protesters out in California.
Not only did he testify there was no mother God, he wrote a whole book about it. But I'm sure you've read or seen Father's sacrifice, and you know that Father was poor, right? He saved up all his money to write books. Why would he write a whole book when he has no money just to say, oh no, I take it back? Why would he do that?
He said Jerusalem won't come to 1,000 years
after the world is destroyed by fire. He said after. So even if Jerusalem is our mother, she's not to appear until 1,000 years after the earth is destroyed by fire. These are Christ Unsung Hong's own words. So if you believe
that's something that Americans have the right to do as a peaceful protest, and they went after them also. So just the fact that they go out of their way to silence people, I mean, I think that needs to be addressed, because again, you don't have random churches going after people who disagree with them.
I think that this is common for cults, call it what it is, I think it's common for cults to use this type of tactic to intimidate people to make them be quiet. I think the only reason that they are coming after her so aggressively is because they want her to be quiet. They want to scare others from speaking out.
I'm never surprised anymore ever since that. You know, I expected, you know, even myself speaking out.
Hello everyone, my name is Jordan. I am a former member of the WMSCOG Society Church of God.
And others, you know, I would even actually warn some who want to speak out against the church and raise awareness that they will start making some crazy rumors about you.
My name is Dory. I'm a former member of the World Mission Society Church of God from 2010 to 2019.
Hi everyone, my name is Kelsey. I'm a former member of the World Mission Society Church of God, and I'm making this video to share my experience within the church. I was in the church for a little over 10 years. I was baptized in October 2007 and I left in November 2017.
People are intimidated by lawsuits. People are intimidated by smear campaigns. However, Michele was not intimidated, and she has not been. And there are many of us that will not be intimidated.
It was a very, very hard time in my life, because at that point, I couldn't really speak out, because anything I tried to say, they would bring it up in court and make a big deal out of it. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. And so at one point, I'm just like, I'm going to have to just not do anything, not publish anything, because it's just going to slow the case down even more. It's just going to give them something else to distract the judge about that has nothing to do with why we're even here. And it was really hard for me, because speaking out and helping other people was a very, very important part of my recovery process from leaving the cult. They took that away from me for a few years. And so when their case against me was dismissed finally by the court, I decided to sue them for malicious abusive process. Like, you can't just sue someone to harass them into staying quiet. That's not a lawful thing to do. It's called a SLAPP suit. So it's a strategic lawsuit against public participation. And some states have laws against those types of lawsuits. You know, one of my lawsuits against them is about that, because I quickly realized that if I don't fight back and get justice for what they've done to me and for what they've done to Tyler and other people, they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop coming after me. And if they don't come after me, they'll come after somebody else who perhaps isn't, you know, equipped to fight them for over a decade in court, like how it's been for me right now. It's just been it's been a really long time. It's nonstop since 2011. And so it's hard. It's really hard. You know, I strongly believe that if I don't see this through, that other people won't be able to speak out, like you and like Lindsay and Tony from Playing in Traffic, or, you know, anyone else who wants to tell their story, even on their podcast or on your YouTube channel, or who submits an article for us at the examining site, whatever it might be. You know, they need to understand that that is not okay, and that they are not going to just, you know, wear me down or try to go wear someone else down and get their way. It's not fair. And, you know, justice will come eventually.
So whenever you see something happening in the church and you know it's not right, and you know it's not legal, please do something about it. Pray about it. It's not right. Mm-hmm. Jesus Christ never turned away people, even if they were evil, even if they were wicked. He just left them and said, go away from me. He didn't cause trouble for them. He didn't sue them.
There are plenty of websites out there that disagree with many denominations. They're not being sued.
This is what a lot of cults do. This is what Scientology does. This is what NXIVM has been known to do. This is what a lot of former cults and religious groups do. They go after former members who want to speak out. And I think that's very unfortunate, and it just makes me want to speak out louder.
Scientology is another group that is very like lawsuit happy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're a cult. So again, it's the behavior. It's they do not tolerate any disagreement or dissent from what they teach. And anybody who says otherwise is a problem and needs to be dealt with.
I mean, this is all just a fabrication to justify a harassment lawsuit. And this is a SLAPP suit. This is a suit designed to silence a critic.
Which is not something that a normal church would do.
You know, this is catching the church in its own lie. So again,
the true church wouldn't need to, cover up their own lies.
They're dishonest organization.
It's
Jehovah's
gaslighting.
Witnesses do the same thing, yeah. And then they, of course, they try to blame it on the members. Oh, you awful people.
Yep.
That's what cults do.
We were always told in the church that the church was being sued by former members. We were always told, oh my God, we're the victim. How could they sue us? They should just leave us alone. That was what we were, told. That's what we genuinely thought. So then to come out and then to hear that the church had sued her, that was very interesting and that was shocking. Personally, I didn't know that the church was suing Michele, and so when I came out and found that out, I was very shocked.
But I want to tell you that God is a God of love. God never lies. The very first thing that God hates is a lying tongue. And one lie is one lie too many. There is no such thing as a righteous lie. The churches, God is above the law, but his workers are not above the law. We should obey the laws of earth as we obey the laws of heaven. As it is on earth, it is in heaven.
Just the fact that they're willing to lie in their papers to the court about things that are easily proven to be true.
Then they also had mentioned that the criticisms that she had regarding the church keeping members till very late, sleep deprivation, and the other things that she would mention, she never experienced herself. So they say, oh, well, Michele Colón, she says that, members stay late. And yeah, members do stay late, but that's because they love the church so much. And, if, she's saying these things, but she never stayed late. She never, she was always a problem. She was always suspicious. She would sneak around and try to look into the kitchen to see if they're making low protein foods. And, they said all these bad things about Michele and the way that she acted in the church and the way that she was in her marriage.
All kinds of things that I wanted to become famous, and that was why I created the examining site. When I started writing on the site, my name wasn't anywhere. I included enough details so that people who are around perhaps could identify with the story, but I didn't include anyone's names, enough details so that you would know it was an authentic story, that it was from somebody who really was in the church.
I was in the church at the time when the examining site first came out, and I did not know about Michele directly when I was inside of the church.
No one knew who was really behind the site until the WMS sued me and, put my name in the public record.
They say that she's seeking fame, she's seeking fortune, she's seeking money to become a cult expert in order to bring in personal gain. And when you say, oh, this person's just doing it for the money, then you automatically discredit them.
Which I had never considered. I'll have to say, I did help other cult experts in interventions, right, to help WMSCOG members leave and help their families. But I, at no point in my life, considered becoming a quote-unquote cult expert. That was never a desire of mine. But they accused me of that being my motive, was because I wanted to establish myself as a cult expert, and that's why I wanted to speak out about the church. They twisted everything around, and it was so hard to sit there and listen to that and not be able to really say anything.
The effects of cults on you, psychologically, really does a lot of damage. And it's not until you once you leave that environment and once you start looking into, cult tactics from experts who have spent, decades studying this subject, that you really realize that, oh, this did have an effect on me. This was actually pretty dangerous psychologically.
I was 12 years in that church, which has a lot of characteristics that resembles a cult.
So can I interrupt you, Ron, and just say that you're describing a very systematic pattern of destructive cults?
Right.
Unlike legitimate religious groups that are transparent and accountable and responsible and actually tell people up front who they are and what they believe and what to expect upon membership, destructive organizations deliberately withhold information, distort information. They break you down, they disorient you through controlling people's behavior, information, thoughts, and emotions. I refer to it as the bite model. They deliberately break people down, disorient them, spoon feed them incrementally what the teachings are, shape their behavior, control sleep, control diet, start to isolate people from family and friends who may be questioning, install phobias in people's minds to make them afraid that if they question the group or even have a negative thought, terrible things are going to happen to them.
The World Mission Society Church of God, hits every checkpoint of a high demand group.
Relationships, potential children you could have had, whatever the case may be. What else are you willing to give up for an organization that at the end of the day does not care about you?
Mm-hmm.
That likely treats you like garbage because that's how they see you, as replaceable. And if you don't agree with them, then you're just possessed by the devil and you're not worthy of their attention. If you don't fall in line, you're not worthy of their attention, and they will humiliate you publicly, and don't think for a second that you deserve that, because they'll have you believe in that too. It is psychological abuse, in my opinion. The gaslighting, the manipulation, the deception, it all adds up to something that cannot be what the God in the Bible is, at least in the New Testament, is supposed to be about love and doing for your neighbor, and all that kind of stuff. That's not what they're about. And for an organization that claims to be the ultimate in Bible interpretation, they've missed quite a few important details that they choose to ignore. So you can either choose to ignore them yourself also and continue with the farce that they've created, or you can set yourself free and live your life again, whatever that means to you. At least then you have the choice. But while you're in the WMS, you don't have the choice. They decide everything for you. And so I don't think that people should have to live like that, because that's akin to sort of slavery. And a lot of them lived in basically abject poverty because they've given everything up for the church, while Zangil Ja lives like a queen who was worshipped and, weighed on hand and foot in South Korea. And why is she worthy of your veneration? Why is she worthy of your worship? What has she done for you? Nothing. She's only taken things away. And so I urge people to really consider what they've given up, what else they're willing to give up, and what they're going to do when they've been in 10, 20 years and reevaluate this later. How are you going to feel when you perhaps had the chance to think about these things before and you passed up on it? Like, you have nothing to lose if everything they told you is true and they're the true church and that's the conclusion you come to. But if you don't take the time to do your own research and really consider the other side of this, you have a lot more to lose. And once you've lost it, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to get back. They made an argument in the New Jersey case that they were not a public figure.
I mean, for you to suggest now, with what has gone on and what the court is aware of, that World Mission Society Church of God is a private figure, are you still going to be arguing that?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, you're going to be arguing it's a public figure, right? It's a public figure.
I don't know that it lends itself, and I'm not going to commit to one or the other, because I think there is case law that shows that for a religious institution or an organization, it's not necessarily public, because we're not talking about...
Is the Catholic Church a public figure?
The Catholic...
Of course they are. I'm talking about a legal definition.
So if we're talking about the papacy, yes, it is. It's a public figure. It is a public figure, but it's also a legally recognized state within a state. I don't know that it lends itself to being a public figure in the same way the papal state does. I don't know that those lend themselves
but just seeing what the World Mission does in terms of its involvement.
I understand, but now consider...
And the judge had a hard time understanding what that argument was even about, because she says, what I understand about World Mission is that they say they have so many million members around the world, and they have so many locations, and they thrust themselves into the public eye with their community cleanups and this and that, and involved with you can't say that you're a private not a public figure when you're putting yourself out there like that.
I want to be clear that throughout Mr. Grosswald's papers, and even today in court, he says they sought out and received awards. That's not true. They don't seek out awards. They get awarded for for community service and other good deeds that they've done. Same way any organization.
I remember thinking to myself, like, I can't tell if the lawyers know the truth and they're lying, or if it's that like the cult is telling them these things and they're just repeating what the cult is telling them. I couldn't tell. They talk almost as if I didn't know any better, I would think that they were members. But the conviction in which they like speak on behalf of the church as if what they're saying is really true. It's just, it was just so disingenuous, everything that they said in court.
You started the case. I was sitting here. Your claims were that you have lost donated revenue as a result of what Ms. Colón did. And there is nothing even remotely suggesting it.
Your Honor, we can't prove malice without depositions. It can't be done. And no plaintiff in our situation can be expected to do it.
I'm saying what I'm saying today because I realize we have 7, 8 applications having to do with depositions and subpoenas, and one had to do with discovery and getting the financial documents to show the financial damage to the entity. And when the court saw that there's no financial damage by whatever methodology you put together to show, I'm trying to figure out what we're doing.
I mean, again, I don't think that the fact that they increased revenue doesn't prove that there was no damage. I mean, businesses...
but you got to prove something. What are you proving? I have nothing.
Finally, their case against me in New Jersey was dismissed on summary judgment because they refused to cooperate with discovery, which means they refused to produce the documents that they were ordered to produce by the court.
This case from the beginning was brought because of specific actions that Ms. Colón did that the church was going to show brought it damage. I have, in terms of exhibits and certifications, everything that's been provided to date in terms of discovery. And I do believe the court's been overly patient with allowing time and extensions and the ability for World Mission to do what it needed to do to prove its case. Because that's your right. But now to be given this, I mean, I stopped the last application because I wanted to see what these documents were. This is what I believe the defendant has been waiting for. And then when I actually received this and I looked at it, I was shocked because it shows absolutely no damage, and certainly no damage as it relates to Ms. Colón.
And with all due respect, we disagree. I believe that an expert can extrapolate from those numbers the trajectory that the gross revenues were on and where they're at now, and that differential would in fact be prospective from the time that the statements were made and show damages in the form of a decreased revenue. If it could have been 5 times what it is now, and maybe it's not because...
I mean, in response to what you're saying in the world of hypotheticals, maybe 50 members of the church left the church because they moved. Maybe 50 members of the church stopped giving money because they lost their jobs. Maybe 50 members of the church on their own, without having looked at anything that Ms. Colón read, decided to leave the church. You're talking in a world of hypotheticals. That's not in a world of
one
counseling.
person leaving the church is too much, especially when it's due to the creation of an entire...
You have to prove that. I have nothing. I don't even have a name. I don't even have a name.
So they were not going to be able to prove that they lost one member's donated revenue because of a statement that I made. That was never going to happen because it didn't actually happen.
The claim of this case is that Ms. Colón is responsible for economic damage to this multi-million-dollar organization that is countrywide based in South Korea.
The court wanted them to produce documents that proved that they lost money as a direct result of a statement that I said. And they couldn't do that. As a matter of fact, the financial statements that they did produce proved that they in fact made more money during the time that they claimed that they lost money.
And after seeing what has been produced in response to the request for production and the interrogatories, which the court was expecting to be exhaustive, is nothing. It is a profit and loss statement prepared by I don't know who, based on I don't know what, showing that the organization has made money. What have we been doing for 2 years?
They made more money. And I'm talking about millions more, not a little bit more, millions more. during the time that they said I was damaging them. The fact that they dragged on these lawsuits for as long as possible with all these crazy arguments about me wanting to be a cult expert or whatever, and just lying to the court for so long. I mean, one of the biggest things that stood out to me as I was listening to another hearing the other day was that they claimed that they still lost money even though they made money. And the judge is like, what do you even mean? Like, how do you prove that you lost money when you made money? Like, you doubled your revenue, let's say. It was like 1 point something million, and then it was like almost double that. They're like, well, we're going to produce experts that are going to determine that we could have made more money. And because of her, we didn't make even more money. I'm like, what? You know what I mean? Like, and it just becomes so obvious how that's all they cared about was the money.
No, yeah. Well, that's what's interesting to me is, again, it's like, why are they saying that out loud in a public forum, that like the ultimate goal of this is because they're so concerned about the loss of money, as if that's what God is that what they think God is so concerned with, is that they lost out on some tithes.
Yeah, no, their God is, apparently, because they literally said in court, well, we could have made more money. So an increase, they said an increase in revenue doesn't necessarily mean that there was no loss in potential revenue.
The information that was provided showing the revenue they received has nothing which is required to show, in fact, that's the money that they received. I mean, it's deficient on so many levels, I don't know where to begin.
There's no month-by-month breakdown to connect it to the timing when the statements were posted. There's no information from any particular donor showing that a particular donor who had read the statement.
I was thinking with the time, effort, and energy that was put in this case, that there would be some sort of, expert report or accounting or something to concretely show that which was being alleged. And this is, it's just a document put together by I don't know who, based upon we don't know what, and it's showing that money increased. So this is rather astonishing to the court, and that's why I called in today to go through this. I mean, I don't see the purpose in going through whether or not the World Mission's legal fees or Colón's motion to quash the IFF subpoena or any of this else needs to be decided, and is not going to be decided, because without this, there is no basis for going forward. And I say we move to the summary judgment stage. I mean, if this is the response. I gave World Mission another week to come up with the documents that they say they produced in the 5,000 page production to show, okay, where is this financial information? Where is the financial proof?
Yeah, it's like, how members listening to this, like, how do you feel that your tithes are being talked about as revenue? Yeah.
They know that there are no members in the courtroom, even though they're public hearings. So that's the other thing that I feel like it's important to share certain parts of it so that members can hear for themselves. Like, not only that, but that's what their tithes were going to, was paying these attorneys to lie, and just to say that we have a problem with the fact that we could have made more money. Like, the fact that we made millions is not enough, because we could have made more millions. So that's why we're here.
Yeah. That's just, see, I've never heard it. I obviously was aware of the legal battles that you were involved in, but just to hear that that's what it sounds like in many ways it boils down to for them, is that, hey, we missed out on some tithes, so we're going after this woman for all she's worth. We're going to do whatever we can, even if it destroys her life, because she caused us to miss out on some tithes.
It could be $1 of damages. It absolutely could be. And that doesn't mean that there haven't been damages. The loss does not have to.
But in terms of even getting there,
they say, well, the lost revenue could have been $1. And so the judge goes, show me the $1.
A business can suffer nominal reputation damages and non-pecuniary.
That's not what your complaint is about. That has never been what your complaint is about.
It also wasn't disclosed in response to the interrogatory, where we asked for every category of damages to be disclosed, and that wasn't disclosed in response to that either.
I remember clearly what this case began as, and what it was about, and what the discovery was about. And so to now say that if they only lost $1 because
but that's the law, number one, and what you're suggesting.
Where's the dollar? Where's the dollar? Show me the dollar. I have none of that.
Show me the dollar you lost in revenue that you can tie specifically to a statement she made, that someone didn't donate that $1 to you because of some statement they read that she made. Like, they would have to literally tie that loss in donated revenue to a specific statement I made, and they would have to produce a person that is going to say, I stopped donating because I read this statement that she said on this day. And they don't have that person. That person doesn't exist. And they don't have that dollar that they can say that they lost. But that was their argument, that even though they made more money, they could have made more money. And the reason they didn't make even more money was my fault.
Because of you.
Where is the basis for this expert to say that there's been a loss in donated revenue?
Because they...
Where in all the discovery that you've given?
An expert should be able to, will be able to forecast based on a trajectory over a period of time where the gross revenues should have been.
Okay, how is this expert, because this is really stretching the imagination now, how is this expert going to differentiate any opinion that expert may give that donated revenue is down because of something Ms. Colón did, as opposed to what 200 or 300 or 400 other critics of the church have done?
Fair enough, and that's why.
Man, that is wacky. That is a not okay thing to be coming from the Church of God, quote unquote. I mean, Mother God, you would have to believe if Mother God is God, she's sitting there and she's fully aware of what's going on. So obviously she endorses this. If this is, the organization won't do what Mother isn't directing them to do, or it's somehow part of her will. And so why would this be what she would want to go after somebody like you for, lost tithes, even if it's just $1? It sounds like they're kind of saying, like, even if it's $1, it's a dollar loss that they should have had. So let's get what's ours.
Yeah. So you have to then believe that this woman is in Korea worried about that $1. When they tell the members, God doesn't care about how much money you have.
Yeah, he doesn't care about the physical, right? I thought the physical didn't matter.
Right. But doesn't she though? Like, what are these lawsuits about then?
Yeah. What are they about?
Money.
Yeah.
Well, if she doesn't care about money because money isn't important, then why is she suing?
10 years of it too. 10 years of fighting this thing.
Yep. It's not.
Yeah.
Yep. We still have at least until February of 2023 as of right now. It's been pushed back so much. I mean, part of it has been COVID as well and the lockdowns. I mean, the court did an excellent job still trying to move things, along virtually, but I mean, they're going to try, I think, to delay it as much as possible. I mean, I envision in my mind what this would look like going to trial, because trials are public, right? Some media is going to be interested in this story. Then what do they do? Everything that they sued over and all of the proof that we have that what they, and at this point now, more and more people are leaving. Now we have more witnesses that are going to testify that, what she said really happens there. My lawyer actually used the phrase the other day in a communication to the court that said, we have a parade of witnesses that will testify that everything she said was true and that they experienced the same thing. So that was like my favorite, a parade of witnesses. Literally, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely is. No doubt about that. I would say, what's the verse that they use in Acts? Leave them alone, because if this is from God, it will succeed, and if not, I can't remember how it goes, but
something like that. If you're fighting against God, you're gonna lose, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, what a great opportunity for them to kind of put their money where their mouth is, but obviously they're not.
I mean, they haven't really won ever yet.
Yeah, they haven't.
So, but what they tell their members is perhaps a different story. But like, I would encourage the members listening now, if you really want to know what happened in court and what they sued over and what the court had to say about it, the documents are out there. for you to verify for yourself what really happened and then compare that to what you were told. And I hope that members don't accept the whole "they lied to me to save me" nonsense excuse, because that's wrong. I don't care how you look at it. How do you lie to someone in order to save them?
Yeah.
That's wrong on so many levels. And I'm just hoping that if there's a current member listening to this, like if you go out and you verify that what they told you was not true, that you don't make excuses for them. Because as I said in one of my recent articles, like, how much more time and energy and money are you going to give to this organization that has everything to gain and you have everything to lose? Yeah. I feel like over the years, we've assembled a mountain of evidence against the validity of this group. Besides the lawsuits, obviously, because they speak for themselves. The fact that An Sang-hong had kids, they lied about it. And he had a whole book about there not being a mother god. I don't see how you get past that. I really don't. All of the excuses that they give are nonsense. The whole special measures law, or like that only applied to this one lady, but not Zhang Gil-ja. I think that that's a really weak argument, because he produced 2 editions of the book. And if his goal was for it to be like a one-time thing, he could have just made like an announcement during the next...
written in the letter, or something like
yeah,
that.
right. So, I don't think he had that many locations where he even had to write a letter, or maybe put it in the church bulletin. I don't know, make an announcement in the beginning. There are actually sermons of him saying that there is no mother God. He did do that, but he still felt that he had to write 2 editions of this book, print it, distribute it among his believers, because that's how strongly he felt about how wrong and crazy that lady was. He literally calls her delusional, right? So what makes Zhang Gil-ja less delusional than the other one? Nothing.
Yeah.
And once you're there, nothing else is true. Like, he never said he was Jesus. They said he was Elijah. It's on his tombstone. His son is like the head of his church. This whole other thing is something that looks like Joo Chul-kim and Zhang Gil-ja came up with together. There's a really weird photo of them. Maybe you can insert it here, where they're both wearing white outfits, and they're the only ones wearing white outfits, and the rest of the congregation are dressed in regular colors, right?
Right.
And what photo does that remind you of? The photo that they used to prove that Zhang Gil-ja and An Sang-hong had some sort of spiritual wedding, where they're dressed in white next to each other. You could say the same thing about that photo of Joo Chul-kim and Zhang Gil-ja. They're both dressed in white next to each other, and actually the suit he's wearing looks very similar to the one that An Sang-hong was wearing, and also does not look like it fits him. If that's what you're using as proof that they were married, and I know that a lot of members hold that photo as something, dear and like emotionally charged for them. Look at the picture of Zhang Gil-ja and Joo Chul-kim next to each other wearing similar white outfits. Do you think they're married? Because if one is proof of that An Sang-hong and Zhang Gil-ja are married, then they're married too, and that's weird. There's no reason for that. And something I discovered not too long ago in a conversation with someone who knew more about this: traditional Korean wedding clothes are not white outfits. I think the woman wears red and the male wears blue. So their argument about them being dressed in white and that somehow has to do with a wedding, in Korean culture, that's not the case. They don't wear white. And you know what the WMS does around the Passover? They encourage members to wear white and light colors. So it would make sense that on the Passover, they'd be dressed like that. But that has nothing to do with the wedding.
Yeah. I mean, as strongly as they emphasize that, and as much as they extrapolate just from that one photo, like, man, if you're a member, you got to be careful, like, who you take a picture with while you're wearing white clothes. Be careful who you get your picture with, because, who knows what sort of spiritual symbolism you're putting off there.
Right. I would love to hear what current members would think about that. Like, how would they justify that? Like, I don't want to hear like, well, it's spiritual. because your whole argument is that they're physically wearing white. So don't tell me that the fact that they're not wearing Korean colors is some spiritual thing. Like that's not gonna cut it. That's not gonna make sense. So I just want to put that out there right now.
Yeah.
If that's the answer, it's not the answer. Yeah, because they tend to do that a lot. So in this case, that would not even apply, even on its face, doesn't make sense. Over the years, many things have changed. Like when all of this started, there wasn't that much cult awareness out there even. Like, you know, like Netflix has so many documentaries now about other cults. And, you know, in Scientology, when they did the documentary about them on HBO hired over 100 lawyers to be able to do that one special. They almost had like a lawyer per minute of the documentary. And so I think after that, it opens up the discussion again, because before that, the media was very afraid to even touch a religion, cult or no cult. And so now the landscape has changed a lot. And I think that a case like this going to trial, you know, jurors are going to be a lot more educated on what cults are, how they operate, and, you know, different types and stuff. And I don't think that this is something that WMS will get away with.
For the WMSCOG to sue somebody, to attack its enemies in response to them persecuting, you know, in their eyes, you're persecuting them. Well, there's a very clear directive given by Jesus about how you respond. It's not vague. It's not unclear. It's pretty specific.
Yeah.
You don't attack back. You bless those who curse you. You know, it's repeated over and over in both Old and New Testament. So they're willingly entering into like this public proclamation pretty much that, hey, we are full of crap. You know, we are totally full of crap. And we're claiming to be the true church of God. And look at us. Look at what we're doing. You know, is Mother God sitting in South Korea, like approving?
Yeah, nowhere in the Bible does it say that sue the ones that persecute you for $12 million, even though you have not suffered a penny of damages and you've made more millions of dollars ever since they started persecuting you. No, that's definitely what you should do, is go after them and try to extract more millions of dollars. Like to me, it just shows how, first of all, suing me for $12 million or even $1 million is stupid because I don't have $1 million. Like, where is that supposed to come from?
Yeah.
So that to me just reflects very poorly on them, that they would throw out such a ridiculous figure like that.
Yeah,
and
like that they're just trying to completely destroy you.
Right, they're just trying to scare me, and you know, I feel like they should have known a little bit better, because I don't think I feel like if they didn't know, perhaps my ex-husband should have known and maybe said like, that's not gonna affect her.
It's not gonna work.
Yeah, and you know, yeah, that wasn't something that I was going to just take like that. There's no way. Like, I believe in my civil liberties and my right to free speech, and I was gonna fight like hell for it. I'm sorry. There's just no way that I was just gonna be like, yeah, I'll take the website down, no problem. No, I was not. There was no way.
I do feel like you've kind of taken kind of in the lead and shielding a lot of us behind you from a lot of crap that we all should be and could be taking. And so, yeah, I genuinely am thankful for you being bold enough and brave enough to do that and to say, nope, I'm not going to take it. Like, certainly would be easier, certainly would be simpler. But this isn't going to go that way. And
yeah, I'm not going to say that I haven't considered it many times over the past decade plus. You know, things have gotten really tough. Like, at one point they got my previous lawyer disqualified and I had to represent myself for a year. And that was really hard. Like, every minute of my life outside of work was spent doing legal research and writing legal briefs and submitting briefs to the court and even filing appeals, which is another beast in itself. So I had to like learn a lot more about the rules of civil procedure in the state of New Jersey than I ever thought that I would. I mean, I learned a lot from my former lawyer because I was always interested in the process and I was fascinated by it. But yeah, during that year, many times it was really, really hard to do. To stand up in court and argue next to attorneys that had gone to school for this, you know, and up there in front of, I had 2 judges on the bench together, and it was scary, but I had to do it. I wasn't going to just let the case go, because then if I dropped the case at that moment, I'm like, they're really never going to stop coming after me.
Fast forward to now, once you get to know Michele Colón, the real Michele Colón, and you see her side of the story, it's actually really heartbreaking, what they've done to her in the past, and what they continue doing with basically bullying her. They painted this picture that she was a bully, but really they're the bully. So they've been bullying her with lawsuits and basically trying to make her life hell.
Having now met Michele personally, she is the complete opposite. She's definitely not trying to devour anyone's souls. But yeah, the perception of her has definitely taken a 180 in terms of just how I view her. Just none of really like what was said about her was true.
Just seeing her courage of never giving up and continuing to fight through this, and as long as this thing has taken all these years, and to never back down, it's really inspiring. And it's also paved the way for a lot of us to speak out against the Women's Church of God and to not let them hold the power over us.
I'm really shocked how different Michele is in, as an actual person, opposed to the caricature that they created her to be and the lies that they explained about her. So, the church really put a negative spin on her, and I'm sure everyone in the church, when they see her, they just are filled with anger. But that's not right. That's not right. People need to get their information from the truth, and that truth is not found inside of the church.
The light that they try to paint her in while I was in the church was completely false, versus getting to know her as a person. And the same goes for other members that have left the Church of God.
When I realized who she was, it was also sort of the time when I was going through the examining site again. So when I came out, I was going to that website daily. In the beginning, it was hard to go to the website because we had been so brainwashed not to. So to look at it, it would have to be late at night by myself in the dark, and I'm kind of scrolling through just little by little, putting these things. And then finally, I just totally, dove in, and I looked up all the information, and I read all the articles, I watched the videos, and it's just eye-opening. And so that was part of my deprogramming, was going through the examining website, and all of that was provided by Michele. All of that information was pulled together. And so I am so incredibly thankful to her.
I admire all the work that she did, uncovering a lot of the facts behind the Church of God that they try and cover up, because I know how hard that is to find, the hard work it takes to really dedicate yourself to doing that, and the time it takes to uncover that. And then even for her to go out of her way to help other people without asking for money in return, that's what really stuck out for me too.
The perception has really been a total 180. She's not trying to devour your soul, I promise you. She's put out so much material that has helped so many leave, including myself.
Now, I've actually met Michele. We've done interviews with Michele, and I think that Michele is completely misunderstood by a lot of people. But I think that Michele is extremely intelligent, extremely brave.
Once you get to know Michele, you see she has a very, very strong spirit. She is determined and brave, and she does everything she can to protect other people from the same things happening to them, whether they're in the church or not yet in the church. She fights really hard and advocates and provides a lot of resources for people because she's a sweetheart. I admire her and respect her a lot for everything she's done and for who she is and how she has not let all of this break her spirit and break her down or turn her bitter. And I am very honored to know her.
I believe that she's a pioneer of this and definitely encouraged me to also follow in those same footsteps, because it's very important to help people. You know, I believe that there's a lot of good people inside that organization, just like there's so many people stuck in, you know, these cults, and they deserve to, you know, have the truth presented to them, the information, the facts. And so, yeah, definitely I salute Michele Colón and for her work ethic and, you know, never tiring now and continue to fight the good fight. Really, it's inspiring, and, you know, I just want to say thank you personally.
Michele, if you're watching this, thank you so very much for not being afraid. Thank you for fighting them in the lawsuits. Thank you for speaking out and giving us information so that we can make our own decisions, so that we don't have to be in an information bubble. Thank you for being brave and defending yourself. Thank you so much for doing all of those things, because by defending yourself, you were actually defending all of us. So,
and for those members who are like, they leave and they're still afraid of me because they were told that I was possessed by the devil or Satan or something like that, I hope that watching this, you don't still believe that, because I've heard that also, that some members, even after they leave and don't believe in the church anymore, are still afraid of me and afraid to talk to me, which I don't think is, like, that's not cool. You know, it's weird. And I'm just a person like everybody else that was there, just trying to do the right thing and help other people. So hopefully, you know, I can change your minds. But
yeah, you're not the bad guy in this situation. You are very much have been the victim. So yeah, I do hope too that for many people this interview helps to kind of dispel some of that just ridiculous propaganda that's been given to people about you.
They've had plenty of time to respond, and they've dragged their feet, and they shouldn't be allowed. This is what we've been complaining all along. This is a slap suit, and a slap suit is characterized by the plaintiff's attempt to harass the defendant to make it not worth it, make it so expensive and so time-consuming that it's not worth it for the defendant to have any more speech critical of the plaintiff. I mean, if you reopen discovery and allow this to drag on, that's what a slap plaintiff wants to do. We've told you from the beginning, they're not really here to win the case. They're here to shut her up. And she's entitled to put an end to this at this point.